everybody, and welcome to the Nola Louise Knits YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the German short row section on my Starlette Bralette pattern. This is the extra small size, and as you can see, I've already knit the ribbed band, and I've done the setup row and placed my markers for the side ribbing panels and the front and back tuck stitch panels. So here's my beginning of round marker. I've just knit to the edge of the side ribbing panel, and I'm going to show you how to do the short rows. So first of all, I'm just going to purl across to this other side panel marker. So here I'm purling the last stitch before the marker, and instead of slipping the marker and continuing in the round, what I'm going to do is turn my work around. So now the wrong side is facing me. I'm going to bring the yarn to the front between the two needles and then slip that last stitch I worked from the left needle to the right needle. Then I'm going to just bring this yarn that's in front over the top of the needle, kind of pulling up that stitch so you can see there's two little legs there. And then I'm going to start working my way back, knitting. So I'm going to knit all the way back to that next marker. So I'm nearing the last couple stitches before I hit that side marker again. So I'm going to knit the last stitch, and again I'm going to turn my work. So once again I'm looking at, the right side of the knitting. I'm going to keep the yarn in front this time and slip the stitch I just worked from the left needle to the right needle, and then pull that yarn back over. So again, I've got those two little legs. All right, so now we're at row 3 of the short rows, and this is the first row in the tuck stitch pattern where we're actually going to work the tuck stitch. So if you look at the tuck stitch instructions, it says purl 3, then tuck stitch. We're going to count this first stitch as the first purl stitch. So we say 1, and again, sorry, I pulled the yarn over the top of the needle, but I'm bringing it to the front again because I'm about to purl the next stitch. So that's the second purled stitch. Here's the third purled stitch, and now I'm going to knit my tuck stitch. So I have a shorter video about this, but just to show you, you look for the little holes under that next stitch. We've got this first hole here, and then the second hole down is the one we want, and you're going to just stick the needle through there from front to back, right through that hole. See that little green stitch? And then you're going to knit it like you just would a normal knit stitch on the needle and pull it through, and then just let that stitch come off the needle, and that's your tuck stitch. I'll show you that one more time. So we purl 3, and then find that second hole down, 1, 2, insert the needle from front to back and knit it. Purl 3, and tuck stitch. Okay, so we are going to continue in this way all the way across this front panel until we reach 2 stitches before that previous stitch that we did the short row on. So I'll resume when I'm there. Okay, so I've almost worked my way back across. Here's my last tuck stitch. And now you see I'm 2 stitches before that previous German short row. So I'm going to purl 1 more stitch. So we've got the German short row, just a regular purl stitch, and then my final stitch. And once again, turn the work, bring the yarn to the front, slip the worked stitch from the left needle to the right stitch, and tug that yarn over the needle so we get that doubled stitch with those two little legs. So in German short rows, we always want to bring the yarn to the front of the side that we're going to continue working, and then pull the yarn back over the needle. So it's always front to back. Now we're going to be knitting back along, so I'm going to leave the yarn behind, and this is the start of row 4 of the short row section. So again, I'm going to knit all the way back until I reach 2 stitches before that previous short row on the other side, and we're going to work one more short row. Okay, so again, I'm going to work until 2 stitches before this previous row's short row. I'm going to knit the next stitch, leaving just 1 plain stitch in between. Turn my work, keeping the yarn in front, slip the stitch from the left needle to the right needle, and tug it over the needle. Here's my little double stitch. And then we're going to purl our way back. This is row 5 of the short row section. I've purled most of the way across this row, and here I am. There's 2 stitches left before my short row. And I just wanted to show you too, look, you can see the little tuck stitches a little more clearly now. I think they're really cute. So I'm going to purl 1 more stitch. So again, we've always got 1 plain stitch in between those fancy German short row stitches. So you know the drill by now. We're going to turn our work, bring the yarn to the front, slip the stitch from the left needle to the right needle, and pull it over the needle to the back. Now we're going to knit our way back. Okay, I'm coming up to the end, and this row we just worked was row 6 of the short rows. So here I am 2 stitches before my fancy little double stitch German short row. Knit 1 more, and then turn the work. Yarn stays in front, slip the stitch from left needle to right needle, and pull the yarn over the top, and then bring it back to the front so I can purl. So now we're on our next tuck stitch row, and I just want to point this out too. I can always tell when I'm on a tuck stitch row because I look at the previous tuck stitches and I count these little purl bumps above. So you can see, including this little green one at the top of this tuck stitch, we've got 1 purl bump, 2 purl bump, 3 purl bump. Sorry, I'll point them out with my needle because my thumb is too big. So this is the first purl bump, the second purl bump, and the third one. So when we have 3, it's time for the next row of tuck stitches. And I've designed this pattern so the tuck stitches will always be worked on the right side, so you never have to worry about trying to figure out how to do a tuck stitch from the wrong side. The other thing that I can show you just about how to read your stitches is if you trace up those columns above the tuck stitches, so we've got this pink column here and this green column here, there are 3 stitches in between, and on alternating rows we're always going to put the tuck stitch on that center column. So even further on in the bralette, when you start to have decreases on the sides, you can always look at your work below and figure out where to place those tuck stitches, and just make sure you refer to what you worked in the previous tuck stitch row. Okay, so we have our German short row. I'm going to purl. Oh, and I'm so sorry. I actually was looking at my stitches and I realized that this next one should actually be a tuck stitch, right? Because we have this column here and then 2 over. So I'm still going to bring that yarn over from the front to the back, but since I'm going to knit the tuck stitch, I'm going to leave it in the back, and I'm going to insert my needle 2 holes down, and work that tuck stitch. So that's probably the most complicated little moment of the short rows, but it's gonna look totally fine once we go back to working in the round. Okay, so then I'm going to purl 3, and do my tuck stitch, purl 3, work my tuck stitch, and I'm going to continue this way across the whole row until I reach 2 stitches before the short row on this side, and we'll resume there. This is row 7 of the short rows that we're working right now. Here I am almost at the end of working row 7. So I have my previous little tuck stitch here, and I'm 2 stitches away from that short row. So I'm going to purl 1 more, turn my work, bring yarn from back to front, slip stitch from left needle to right needle, and tug that yarn over the top of the needle. Then I'm going to knit my way back. Okay, I'm 2 stitches before the short row. I'm going to knit this next stitch. You can see I always have alternating short row stitch, regular, short row, regular, short row stitch, regular. Turn my work. Yarn is already in the front. Bring the stitch from the left needle to the right needle and tug the yarn over the top of the needle. Since I'm purling, I'll bring the yarn back to the front under the needle and purl. Now I'm knitting size extra small here, so there's only this 1 set of short rows. But if you're knitting a larger size, or if you wanted to add additional short rows to your bralette, you would just continue working another set of these 8 rows, always just making sure you're leaving 1 regular stitch in between the previous short row. So your short rows will kind of grow diagonally in a sloped way. Whenever you get to the point when you are done working all your short rows, the next row you're working should always be a row 1 of the tuck stitch pattern, and row 1 of the tuck stitch pattern is just purling. So I'm going to show you what it'll look like when we get to those short rows that we worked in the previous round, those German short row stitches. So I'm going to purl all the way to them and then resume. I've purled across to those short rows. Here is that first one. So now instead of turning my work and working back and forth, I'm just going to keep purling. And here's how you purl the short row. You make sure you insert the needle under both of those legs. And you want to make sure you don't accidentally pick up one of those threads in the back. So you can see I'm just getting that kind of pinkish and kind of orangish thread, those 2 legs purl-wise. And then just purl them like a regular stitch. And as you can see, it just looks like a regular purl stitch. There's a tiny bit more yarn there, but it's pretty invisible. So here's the next regular stitch I'm just purling. And again, here's a short row. I'm just gonna get my needle under those 2 legs, purl it, slip it off, a regular stitch, purl, and a short row. Make sure you can see that little, this one was like kind of rolled down a little. So just make sure that little X is on the top of the needle. You see that little bump? And you want to make sure you're getting those 2 legs that are supposed to be in front. So in this case, it's those 2 white legs. Okay, and here we are, regular purl stitch. This is the last short row. So again, you can see the 2 pink legs are the ones in the back, and the two kind of white legs are the ones in the front. I'm gonna make sure I get those 2. Purl, slip it off. Then we're gonna slip that marker. This is the side ribbing. So I'm going back to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. knit one, purl one. Okay, now I'm at the back panel for the first time, and I'm going to work also row 1 of the tuck stitch pattern. So that row 1 is all purling. So I will work this around to the start, the beginning of the round marker, and then I'll just pick back up to show you picking up those final wrapped stitches, those final little leg stitches, the German short rows on the other side, okay? Okay, I'm back to the beginning of the round. So I'm just going to slip my beginning of round marker and finish knitting that side panel of ribbing. And here we are at the front panel. Now we're going to be working round 2 of the tuck stitch pattern, and it's important to remember before we were working tuck stitch back and forth, so the even numbered rounds were wrong side rounds, and we had to knit them so that we would get this purl texture on the front, the reverse stockinette texture. But now since we're back in the round, even rounds are also just going to be plain purling. So we've slipped that marker, and I'm going to purl this first German short row stitch. So again, I always want to make sure that that cross is on top. You see we've got a little 2 gray legs in the back and 2 green legs in the front. So I'm going to get those 2 green legs, purl, and then it's just this regular stitch. 2 blue legs in the back, 2 silver legs in front. And here we've got these two blue legs. Hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or need any more clarification. And I'm really excited you're checking out this video, and I hope you'll really enjoy working the Starlette Bralette. Thanks again.